did you find this guy? Give me a break, Pete. Hey.
As 2016 draws to a close, I did want to revisit and ramp up my PC coverage, and no better way to start than Capcom's Resident Evil 7. Now, of course, long-term viewers have probably bemoaned the fact that you haven't had much PC coverage this year, or at least towards the end of the year. I have done quite a bit, but that's simply because there's been so much console action going on, and I need to get people in to watch the channel and subscribe. As I've already covered things like the RX 480 in detail at launch, HDR TVs way before they became popular and people started talking about them generally with information about 6 or 7 months ago now, and also the PSVR, the Xbox One S, and obviously the PS4 Pro, and I will continue to do all of that. But really, I have no preference and I have no bias towards anything. All I'm interested in is the hardware itself overall, and obviously the software itself, which is the most important aspect, which I've preached about many times. Not going to dwell too much into that, but I do have an upcoming Q&A in the new year where I'll tell you where my channel and website are headed, and obviously get your thoughts and feedback to help me dictate that path. Enough digressing and waffling on, I want to get back to the games, and again, Resident Evil 7. Now, as I covered on the console releases, the GTX 970 and the GTX 750 Ti are going to give you a good basis and range of what the game will run like on a good spectrum of PC hardware. So the GTX 750 is going to be more along the lines of what we saw on the Xbox One S, and that means that we're seeing the same interlace method. Now, you remember when I covered the title at the time, I didn't know it was called interlacing, but I did pick up the fact that this game does look to be using a reconstruction technique or an MSA type reconstruction on the actual image quality. This means that you get a half width 960 and a half height on the actual image itself, 540. Now this, I now know it's called interlacing because it is in the PC menu, and as suspected, this gives about 30%, I would say, give or take, performance gain. This means that on the GTX 750, it's your only real option to play this game. Anything below this and you're going to get heavy dips unless you turn VSync off. Again, a lot of the NVIDIA driver cards now just basically double buffer the frame rate, which you can override in the driver panel if you want to triple buffer it, which will add a little bit more delay. But this means that when the game dips, it will drop down to 30 FPS from the 60, unless it's very short little skints, which you'll see on screen with my frame rate analysis. Now, looking at the GTX 970, this is a medium level, a mid-range graphics card nowadays, around the 1060 level, give or take, the RX 480 level. So this is where the mainstream gamers are going to play. And this title is not a demanding one at all. So that means that you've got a good spread of hardware, and there's a great set of options in here to tweak the game. One of the things I will advise, if you are running a 2GB card, forget about very high shadows. As you can see here on the 750 Ti, it just drops into single digits of frame rate. The memory allocation here is just too small. It cannot cache that amount of shadow maps in memory. It really is a problem. Now, looking at the comparison between the console and the PC, I would say that the PC version would push obviously much higher. Volumetric lighting certainly has a higher option. I would say we're looking at the low level on the consoles, and the high level on PC is possible. Not really on the 750 Ti, but again, like I say, interlace mode is there. So looking at the screen here, this is pretty much what I would say the Xbox One and the PS4 version are running, aside the fact that the PS4 doesn't run interlace mode after multiple checks. I'm pretty sure it's running the full rendering mode as standard games, and I believe it's running the same as, or probably even slightly better filtered versions of the highest shadows on the PC release here. It doesn't run HBAO. That is quite intensive, although there has been a patch since I made this video on the PC to improve it, but unfortunately I haven't gone back and looked at it. But if you do ramp up the settings on the GTX 970, then unlocked 60 is beyond the realms of that as well. So again, this isn't to say that it's bad or you should be able to do that. Games have these options for a reason. They push the technology and they're not refined. So when you go into the extremes of any setting in a game, you are going to see bigger cutbacks and basically a diminishing return on what you see visually on screen to what the performance hit is. So tweaking it to around the perfect level, which unsurprisingly is probably what the consoles are running and maybe tweaked even further, we can see that this title does look and run slightly better on the Xbox One than it does on the GTX 750 Ti. And pretty much the same with a couple more dips on better settings on the GTX 970 than it does on the PS4. This is all still a work in progress, so I'm sure even the PC builds here will improve. There does seem to be some issues, certainly the screen space reflections, which are largely absent on the console versions pretty much all the way through, run a variable section on the PC. If you don't run that, you get all these artifacting on the table, which you can see in front of you. So these are used to both reflect objects in the scene and also obviously screen space reflection for light bounce off of walls and basically the colour to enhance the scene and give that kind of dynamic look to every section, so you get reflectance on floors and walls coming off of the bounce light from the screen space reflections. But largely these aren't present on console. You can see again here with the tins on the side, the reflectance here from the screen space isn't present, and these are basically GPU related areas cutbacks, which makes obvious sense. The Pro version doesn't appear to have them either. But I suspect at the time, like I said, that isn't really a Pro version in any way, shape or form, and the final game will have all the benefits that the Pro patch will offer, which I'll cover, including HDR, which is here in the PC option as well, and I'll be covering that in more detail with the final title. But overall, the game itself is very well delivered, and it's a competent multi-platform on PC, much better than what we saw from the original Resident Evil 4 way back in the day when the Capcom release came out. This is really pushing it higher. There are some tweaks and some visual differences that you can get between the PC and the console, but predominantly the AA with FXAA and the TSAA looks very similar between the two, to the point where I can't see any real difference. The subsurface scattering looks about identical on console to PC, but you do get some extra features on the PC, which is nice. You've got the options there. You can run the additional volumetric lighting. You can run the screen space reflections, like I say. You can run HBAO, which improves the internal shadow quality. But overall, the game uses PC hardware very well. Not really hammering the CPU, using around 5 to 6 cores pretty well. And it scales well across all ranges of hardware, allowing you to choose the best option and get the best quality and frame rate. You do get a few dips on the 750 Ti, lower than what you saw on the consoles, but again, this is a work in progress. I'm not really going to dwell too much on performance, just like I did on consoles, and this isn't really indicative of the final game anyway, as it's going to be far more action packed and use far more alpha effects, particle effects and lighting techniques throughout the game and its open areas. This isn't really part of the game at all, so I'm looking forward to getting my final hands on and seeing just what final benefits the RE engine will deliver on PC and consoles alike, and just what those pro benefits end up being in the final title. Anyway, if you enjoyed this or anything else that I've put together, then please feel free to subscribe and support me by sharing my work where appropriate, liking if you did, and reading more on my website and coming back to my channel regularly. Now, I appreciate everyone's help and support throughout the last few years, and specifically 2016, and I need to push it further and harder in 2017, and to do that I appreciate and need all of you and more to help me out. So you can do that by spreading the word and helping share where needed. I am self-funded and completely independent, and will always stay just so, but it also helps to be seen and have a high review rate, and therefore I can get more clout and get people to see me and give me review copies and get early access and direct information from developers, which only helps assist me and the information I give you guys even more. Sorry for the waffle, and I'll see you soon in 2017 and on the next one.
Welcome to the family, son.